Okay, we're good.
Okay, hello and welcome to the November meeting of the Albany Public Library Board of Trustees. It is 6:05 and I will call the meeting to order. All trustees are in attendance except for Trustee Robinson, who is under the weather. So we will move on to public comment. Has there been any public comment in between meetings?
There's been no public comment.
All right. Then we will move on to our auditor's report. And we have Chris Healy from Marvin and Company to present.
All right, I will try to be as brief as I can with these. I know if you've looked at the reports in the past or in preparation for the meeting today, you know that it's fairly lengthy. I'm going to focus on the reports themselves versus going through in detail and much of the numbers. So let me just bring up here so that we can share the draft. Okay, so I'm going to actually start with the separate letter that was addressed to the trustees of the Albany Public Library, which I don't know if we have up here, so I'll just talk through that letter briefly. This letter is the required communications with those charged with governance, which is the Board of Trustees. And this communication is required by our professional audit standards that require us to communicate this information to you. It lets you know that your significant accounting policies are included in the first footnote to your financial statements. You did implement two new standards this year, GASB number 87, leases, and GASB number 96, subscription-based information technology arrangements. And we'll talk a little bit more about those, but there really was no significant impact to the library as a result of implementing those standards this year. Accounting estimates, all financial statements have estimates embedded within them. Particular estimates, certain estimates are particularly sensitive. The most sensitive estimates in your financial statements are the net pension asset or liability, which that information is provided to you by the New York State Employees Retirement Plan. The estimate for other post-employment benefits. So again, that's a actuarial calculation that's you hire a consultant to prepare that calculation based on underlying census data and your union contracts. And then the fair value of investments. So you do have some investments related to your bond reserves, and those fair value measurements are also considered a significant estimate. As part of our audit process, we consider those estimates. We believe that all the estimates used by the library are reasonable. We did not encounter any difficulties in performing the audit. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements. So we do have a couple of corrected misstatements attached to this communication that based on the dollar amount we're required to report to you. And I'll talk about that a little bit later when I get to the one finding that we do have in the report this year. We had no disagreements with management. Management will provide us with a representation letter, basically stating that they've been truthful, accurate, and honest, provided us with all the information that we requested. And then the rest of this letter is really just general information, letting you know that there's really no other significant matters to report to you. Any questions on that before I move into the actual audit report? Thanks. Okay, so in the actual audit report document, I want to start right on page, let's see here, page 1, which should be the auditor's report. And so similar to the library, we as auditors were required to implement a new standard this year, which changed the way that the audit report looks. And one of the things that I like the most about the change is that you'll see that your opinion on the financial statements is now the very first thing in the audit report. If you were to go back and look at years prior, you would have to go to page 2, sometimes even page 3 to get to our opinion on the financial statements. And the new standard required us to bring that right up front and center. So it makes it a little bit more user-friendly. So you'll see right there at the top, we audited the financial statements, and we believe that they are fairly stated in all material respects, which is the unmodified opinion that you're looking for. That's the highest level of assurance that we can provide on your financial statements. The next section, the basis for opinions, lets you know that we conducted the audit in accordance with government auditing standards. Since you're a governmental organization, we're required to follow a little bit more strict standards. We're required to meet certain ethical responsibilities and to be independent of the library. Management is responsible for the preparation and presentation of the financial statements. So although we do prepare the financial statements for you, management accepts that responsibility by reviewing in detail and asking questions. Then the last paragraph on that first page is a new paragraph in there this year that talks about considering if there's any substantial doubt about the library's ability to continue. Again, this is standard language that's now required to be in the auditor's report. It's something that's been done really behind the scenes for many years, but now it's just required to be included in the report. On the top of page 2, auditor's responsibilities. So again, this is another section that if you were to go back and look at prior years, this section has been expanded significantly. But again, all of the information that's in there are things that have been done for many years, but now those are being presented right in the report to make it a little bit more transparent what the audit actually entails. And that lets you know that an audit the purpose of the audit is to obtain reasonable assurance about the financial statements, not absolute assurance. So we can't look at every single transaction that happens through the year, but we do perform a risk assessment and we focus our audit attention on those areas that we feel there's more significant risk. We exercise professional judgment. We obtain an understanding of internal controls, but we don't provide an opinion on your internal controls. We evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies and the reasonableness of estimates. And then again, a conclusion about whether there are any significant concerns about the library's ability to continue into the future, which is really not something that I would expect to be a concern based on the fact that you levy taxes to support the operations, but it is required to be in the report. This is something that if there was an issue, you would see a much more significant section related to that language. Required supplementary information. So this section looks at some required supplementary information in your financial statements, and we perform limited procedures over that, but we do not provide any assurance over that required supplementary information. Most of that really comes from your actuaries related to the pension plan, your other post-employment benefits liability. The last piece on this is the other report required by government auditing standards. So again, because you're a governmental organization, we're required to issue another report, and we're going to get to that report here in just a minute, and I'll go through that as well. But this just lets you know that there is another report. So if I move forward, I'm going to move forward to page 7, 8, 9. Sorry. Page 9, which is your statement of statement of net position for the district or for the library, excuse me. This is supposed to make you look comparable to another not-for-profit organization or a for-profit entity. It really incorporates all your long-term assets and all your long-term liabilities, whereas the fund financial statements, which we'll look at next, are really your short-term, year-to-year operations. That's what you pass the budget based on. But this is really just designed to make you look at it as if you were operating as again, more of a full accrual basis, like a not-for-profit entity. Most significant items on here, I just want to point out, the net pension asset is about $1.2 million. If you go back to last year, that was a net pension liability, and that really just relates to the year end of the employee's retirement plan. So that's a 3/31 year-end plan, and it's actually a year behind. So the market conditions based on the timing of the end of the year for that plan were as such that you had an asset reflected. I would expect that to revert to a liability again next year based on where the market stands. But again, this is a number that you report based on information that's provided to you. You really don't have any control over what number shows up there. And then your other post-employment benefits liability, again, is about $13.9 million. that's really the actuarial calculation of what you will pay for current and future retirees for their health insurance. If the library were essentially to close up shop today and cease to exist, that's the estimate of how much it would cost into the future for that. Again, it's an actuarial calculation. You pay those premiums as they come due. You'll never have to fund that that liability, but it is required to be reported. I'm going to skip ahead here to page 11. So this is the balance sheet for the governmental fund. So this is at your fund level. So you'll see your total fund balance or fund equity at the end of the year for the general fund was about $5.2 million. You had about 2.1 million in a capital reserve set aside for future capital projects. On the next page, the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund equity, you'll see that you had a change in the general fund. You had a loss of about $304,000. We'll look at the budget actual schedule here in a few slides, and I can point out a few things there, but overall, as a percentage of the budget, that's a fairly small margin. But so your fund equity, again, at the end of the year, was about 5.2 million in the general fund. Your capital projects fund had a deficit of about 24,000. A deficit isn't unusual in the capital projects fund. It's really just a function of the funding when you receive reimbursement, or if you go out for debt, you would expect to see a deficit until that financing is obtained. And then the debt service fund is really just where you hold on to your funds for your upcoming debt payment for the subsequent year. So then starting on page 15, the notes of the financial statements. I'm not going to go through the notes in detail. There's a lot of information in there. If you're looking for any further information on any of the numbers in the financial statements, that's a great spot to start. I'm going to skip ahead here to page 38. You can get there on the screen here, bear with me. So page 38 is the budget to actual schedule. So as I mentioned, you were about $217,000 over budget on revenue, which is a good thing. That comes out to about 2% of the total revenue budget. So that's pretty right on. Usually we look to see that number be within 5%. That is a sign that the budget is on target. On your expenditures side, you were within about 1% of budget. So you're slightly over budget, but you were within about 1%. Again, that's pretty spot on. Moving forward to page 42. So this is the other report that was referenced in the first report that we went through, the report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance in accordance with government auditing standards. So again, this report lets you know that we audited the financial statements. As part of that process, we consider your internal controls, but we don't provide an opinion on your internal controls. And then the next section references that there is one finding this year in internal control over financial reporting, which I will discuss here in a moment on the schedule of findings. Moving to the next page, report on compliance. Again, similar to internal control over financial reporting, we consider internal control over compliance, but we don't provide an opinion on internal control over compliance. We do test the library's compliance with relevant laws, regulations, contracts, things of that nature. If we had any findings to report to you in that area, we would. We have no findings in that area to report. So moving to the schedule of findings. So the one finding that we do have this year was related to some audit adjustments. So I mentioned in the first letter that I went through, there's a couple of entries that were recorded as part of the audit process. Based on the dollar amount of those journal entries, I'm required to report those as a material weakness. I don't think that those journal entries were, there was nothing to be concerned about from the standpoint of, anything being amiss. It was really just a function of transferring the funds related to the capital projects around and making sure that that was, all squared away. So I have to report it based on the dollar amount, but it's not something that I would say was of concern or anything of that nature. So solely based on the dollar amount that's included in this report. And I think that's been squared away so that hopefully in the future we'll be moving forward without having to worry about that. So that's really all I have. Are there any questions? And certainly, thank you to Adam and the team at the library for, providing us everything. I know we certainly come in and ask for a lot of information, and they do a great job getting us that information, quickly and working through the process. And so a big thank you to the team for that.
Thank you too.
Any questions from anybody? All right, I think we're okay.
One change on page 8. Reference to Scott as the source for additional information.
I will make sure that that is updated.
Thanks.
We are all set on our side to finalize these reports, so we'll be in touch, Adam, to get that final piece ready to do that, and I will make sure that that's changed.
Cool.
Okay. Sounds good.
I just want to thank Adam and Melanie for producing and taking care of being great stewards of the financial part of Albany Public Library. It was a difficult year, and just want to recognize the good work that you all did. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
All right. So we will move on to our consent agenda. And I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Trustee Sarah Masinski making a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there a second? Thanks, Arlene. Is there any further discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none. Are we voting? Analog? Okay. All in favor, please say
Bye.
aye. All opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, that brings us to agenda item 5. I will turn it over to Sean and Adam.
The reports this month cover September 2022.
Sean, would you mind grabbing the microphone for the live stream?
But it should be catching everybody. That's their.
Okay. Oh, it is. Okay, cool.
The reports this month cover September 2022, which is a quarter of the way through our 22-23 fiscal year. As of the end of September, our revenue represents 24% of what was budgeted for, and our total expenditures represent 25% of what was budgeted for. The expenditure trends continue to trend as we've noted in recent months, as those are the most notable aspects of the report that are different. So I'll ask Adam to fill in the details.
Sure. Just a couple of quick notes. So facilities and IT costs continue to accumulate and will likely be a concern for the remainder of the fiscal year. And payroll costs continue to remain manageable relative to the budgets, due in part to the effect of resignations, as well as certain positions remaining unfilled each month. So if anyone has any questions on the reports, be happy to address those. Thanks.
Any questions? I think I might have asked this a couple months ago, but I noticed in the treasurer report that we have negative interest income. What does that mean again?
So that is the way it is because that line factors in not only the actual interest income that we take in, but also the unrealized losses on our investments. And due to the nature of the market, the unrealized loss figure is significant. It is greater than the interest income we've taken in. So that's why that is negative. It doesn't actually reflect a loss of cash. It's simply an unrealized loss. That's always been factored into our reports since I've been here. So it still is that way.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? All right, thank you, Sean and Adam. And we will move on to agenda item 6, which first is 6.1, trustees report out. Did anybody have anything to share?
I attended the NILE conference in Saratoga. That's one of the sections, which was health literacy, and how it will, benefit the partnership between Albany Medical College and the library with everyone, because just like with financial literacy, everyone is, not as literate as they would like to or think they are with the healthcare system, and especially is changing. And right now it's in enrollment time for seniors, and it's very confusing. So they had a wealth of information as far as how to guide patrons to some information that they could look on, and how to direct them to even navigate, like seniors navigate their time in at the doctor's office and get the most out of it. So it was very encouraging. So.
Oh, nice. Thanks for going. Any others, Paige?
I attended a workshop last night at the Pine Hills branch. It was called Leading with Passion. It was a leadership workshop and talked about, building trust and making smart goals and things I think all very relevant. And so very, very well conducted workshop.
Awesome.
Attended a webinar on parliamentary procedure, and it was informative, and I realized how much I don't know about parliamentarian procedure. But I have a little guidebook.
My family and I went to the lantern making workshop. We also went to the annual, I believe it was the 7th annual this year, lantern parade. So that was a lot of fun. It was a good event. A lot of people came out. They had a band. It was pretty cute. It was a nice time. That's my.
Nice.
Hi, Trustee West. So I also attended the effective meetings utilizing parliamentary procedure workshop. And it was informative. He actually also highlighted the procedures as far as being a library trustee. So that was very good and beneficial, and we did get some great handouts. So it's definitely something that I would recommend that everyone take at some point.
It's recorded.
Yes,
So we
it is.
can watch it every month.
I also attended that webinar. It was really helpful. Thank you, Sarah, for sending it around. And then I wasn't at this personally, but some folks I know were, and they gave it nice reviews. There was a tenant listening session at the Arbor Hill branch, I think last Thursday. And it was just a chance for tenants and some officials and advocates to come together at the library, talk about housing issues, and the people I know who went had a really enjoyable conversation. Yeah. All right, thank you. We did a lot. All right, agenda item 6.2 is report from the Policy and Governance Committee.
Yes, we had a meeting, November 1st, in attendance with myself, chair. We had trustee, Pryor, trustee West as well, Andrea, Nicolay, and, Melanie. Metzger in attendance as well. We had some great discussion. One of the, most important things, we really came up with the schedule, for the year, which was great. I don't think I need to go through the dates. I mean, I think that that's, posted. We also discussed the bylaws. We're gonna have that ready, just some additions, and that could be a little bit better. We'll have that, ready for, the board in the March board meeting. And also we went through the room use policy, and that could be wordsmith as well to, but we're still working, so that should be ready next meeting as well. So that's pretty much it.
When we amend bylaws, do we send them to council at any point? Like, I don't know.
We're
if we-
still working through it. So
Okay.
if anything needs to happen or what have you, everyone will be contacted before we even present it. Those are just some items that we started with, and of course, everything's a work in progress. So if we have more updates, we'll of course share that with the board.
Okay, cool, great work. Thank you. So agenda item 6.3, report from the Upper Hudson Board.
Okay, I attended the meeting on October 12th on behalf of APL, and it was mostly about the money. We received a report from the CPA as part of the audit process for Upper Hudson. The Finance Committee reviewed it, and we'll have discussion about it at our meeting tomorrow. We approved the general library, the central library's budget for 2023. And we'll be talking about the Upper Hudson Library budget tomorrow. So pretty much, that was the deal. There is a new initiative that's being formulated or formed by ALA, Unite Against Book Bans, and that is in response to efforts to ban books. So there'll be more on that. We're going to discuss that tomorrow. We'll receive some information, and we will want all of our member libraries to participate in this effort. So as I get more, I will share the information with you. All 10 applications from our member organizations for construction that was presented to Upper Hudson was approved and was forwarded to DLD. And what else is there to say? Oh, yes, we've been talking a bit about the role of the trustees of Upper Hudson system. And so we're still talking, but where we're resting right now is that they want us to serve as ambassadors to other member libraries. So still talking. I will advise when this is finalized, but that's pretty much it.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Arlene. And so before we go on to the director's report, I meant to make an agenda item for this, but I forgot. What we have done in past years is we kind of go around and say what committees plan to meet in the next month so that we all kind of have an idea of who will be meeting and like what kind of work is coming up. And then next month, you hear the report on the back end. And I always found that helpful. So I thought if the chair of any committees who have a meeting scheduled for the next month, if you could raise your hand and maybe give a couple sentences about what you'll be meeting about. Go ahead, Sarah.
The Finance Committee is meeting this month. They're meeting this month. I don't know the date. Hold on. I raised my hand before I looked at my calendar. I apologize. Okay, we're going to be meeting the Come on, guys, you're all going.
I think it's the
29th.
20, okay.
29th at 6 PM here. And we're gonna start looking at the budget.
Yeah, we're going to be doing a budget mod,
Facilities or finance?
finance.
Mistyped it then.
The facility, I'm gonna speak with Adam to see, what's on the agenda, what we need to find out about AVAC and, here in Washington Avenue, as well as, the other ones, Bach and the other, what the works are in order. So once I find out from him, then I can decide when we'll meet in December.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. The ad hoc strategic plan committee is meeting this month, and so is the nominating committee.
Nice. Yeah, so our committee work is ramping up, so I just thought we should do that. I think nominating is meeting on the 28th
Mhm.
and strategic plan is
On the 22nd.
22nd. Yes. Yes.
I guess I'll go through our policy and governance, our dates, mine as well. December 6th, January 24th, February 7th, March 7th, April 4th, May 2nd, June 8th, all at 6 p.m. And we'll continue our work on the bylaws and the policy and other agenda items will be added.
Awesome. I think that is it. Thank you, everybody. Look forward to hearing those reports in December. And now we can move on to our director's report.
All right. Well, October was a very busy month. We had, of course, the reopening of North Albany as a major highlight of October. Drew a really nice crowd. It seems like a really long time ago now. It's amazing to me looking back at just a month ago. But Mayor Sheehan was there, the superintendent of schools, Quita Adams, our North Albany Middle School principal, Andrea Piper, and of course, a whole lot of trustees. So thanks all for coming out to support that event. And we gave away a lot of goodie bags of donuts and various treats. And moving on, we did observe Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We partnered with the Albany County Crime Victim and Sexual Violence Center. Another really cool partnership, we're getting involved with the Times Union on grant-funded conversations with Albany residents about trust in the media. You may have seen their voting guide or how they report on elections in the recent Times Union. That's part of the same grant-funded project. We have rebooted a monthly movie series at Bach featuring a classic movie and a coordinating non-alcoholic mocktail. And that was, I think, fairly well attended. And I'll just kind of fly through the rest of these. So we also had a really great teen program. We had 20 teens come out for Super Smash Brothers Ultimate Tournament. The Arbor Hill West Hill video gaming program for teens continues to be really, really popular. Under operations, our HR director, Kristen Connors, attended the Capital Region Chamber Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Summit on October 6th, which took place in Troy. Of course, Adam Stump and the finance team over there worked closely with our auditors, assisting with the successful completion of the report you all just heard. We, of course, very early in October had the Literary Legends Gala. Again, a lot of you came out for that. It was a lovely event, very well attended. I finished a series of staff meetings in each service area with a focus on staff safety concerns, and safety will continue to be a regular focus of my meetings with staff throughout the system. We've also reconvened the safety committee, and we, skipping around a little bit, we built on the work we started last month to revitalize our partnership with the Patient Services Coordinating Committee of the Albany County Department of Mental Health. And we're providing mental health first aid training for APL staff. We're offering a session next month and I believe in the spring, on de-escalation. And this is all Albany-specific information, which is great for our staff because, of course, connecting people with the resources in this immediate neighborhood and area is going to be the best possible outcome for our patrons who are experiencing mental health crises. I completed a few outreach visits and meetings. I attended the West End and West Hill Neighborhood Revitalization Steering Committee. Thanks to Arlene for inviting me. I toured the State Library with Upper Hudson Executive Director Tim Burke. Got to see the Talking Book and Braille Library. We had a celebration for the Friends during the Friends and Foundation, I should say, during National Friends Appreciation Week. And I appeared at the FAPL Book Talk and said a few words of thanks to our Friends and Foundation. And there was the Central Square Neighborhood Association, where I presented on what's new at the library, starting to make the rounds with neighborhood associations, which has been a lot of fun and a great way to meet people in the community and get to know Albany. The leadership, of course, and the Board of Trustees met on October 22nd for that day-long workshop to develop our new strategic plan. And the focus areas are, as you know, but for the sake of the community, community engagement, workforce, diversity, equity, inclusion, and access, and sustainability of all kinds. Fiscal sustainability, environmental, facilities sustainability. So we had a really productive day. And the next steps are the ad hoc committee is going to review the draft plan, and the draft plan will include high-level goals and objectives, and then the plan will come to the board in December for final review. And last but not, I also attended the webinar that Tom and Andrea and Sarah Dallas attended on parliamentary procedure. It was really, really interesting. I'll be sure to send around the link unless you want to, Tom.
Yeah.
Sure. And yeah, our trends are continuing a positive upward trend across circulation, which is really fantastic. We're really gaining ground that we lost during the pandemic. And we're also seeing that people are already reserving the new community room space at North Albany, which is really encouraging. We had finally 31 incidents and 0 loss of library privileges. And that kind of concludes the summary of the report. If you have questions on anything else in the report, I'm happy to address them.
Any questions for Andrea?
Can I add one more thing?
Of course.
I will be conducting a series of community meet and greet meetings over the course of November and December. I did email you all about that. I welcome you to join me at any of those. There will be 7 of them across the system, 1 at each branch. And I'm offering them at various times of the day, days of the week, so that we can hopefully get, so I can meet community members who want to come out and tell me what they would like to see at the library, what they don't want to see at the library, and everything in between. So yeah, that's all listed on our events calendar. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Any final questions? All right. Did you want to briefly then discuss the informational memo?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And I did add an updated memo to the board docs, which you may or may not have seen if you reviewed the board docs materials earlier this week, you may have seen the earlier version. So I just want to make a note that happily we're going to be receiving some special legislative grant funding through Senator Neil Breslin's office. These applications for this funding were completed in May, so it actually predated my tenure, but Melanie and the team filled out a couple of applications for this funding. And it's going to support materials for multilingual juvenile collections at Arbor Hill West Hill and at Washington, a multilingual early literacy initiative and programming. These are projects that are in development. We may involve a consultant to help develop the curriculum for literacy initiatives and programming and multilingual early literacy initiatives so that we can implement them system-wide potentially in the future. So this grant funding will really go far to connect folks who may not feel connected because they're not seeing or hearing their languages in the library now, but hopefully will be soon. So we're also going to be organizing some sort of thank you event with Senator Breslin's office once we have something to show for this wonderful grant funding. So grateful for that and looking forward to making plans.
Sarah.
Andrea, will there be signage in different languages? I think that would be a nice, so if some of the money can be used.
That's definitely a goal. This funding happens to be targeted for Arbor Hill and Washington, but I think that we can start really thinking about what we want to pilot in terms of signage in multiple languages. I think that would be a great goal for us as a system. And of course, the materials to hopefully match the signage so that we can offer something in all the languages that are spoken in Albany. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Andrea. All right, so we will move on to item 9, which is unfinished business. And first item is returning to our Board of Trustees meeting schedule that we approved last month with the understanding that we would come back this month and talk about the February meeting. The second Tuesday of the month happens to be Valentine's Day, and it was suggested that maybe we shouldn't meet on Valentine's Day because people have lives. And so I think that's a good idea, actually. And what you see in board docs is a revised schedule. We don't have to do this, but this is what I propose we do, which would just be to move the meeting from February 14th to February 2nd. So one Tuesday prior. And I thought that would be good because it kind of puts the January 10th, February 7th, and February 28th meetings more equidistant apart so that there's better spacing. How does that sound?
Committee, if you do this, we just have to decide if we're going to schedule our February 7th meeting at 6 p.m. or if we're going to do it before or after. If you go with this.
It works. Do you need a vote?
Yeah, if we like this, then we can take a motion to approve this revised schedule.
I make a motion that we approve the revised schedule.
Thank you, Trustee Way. Is there a second? Sarah Dallas seconds. All those in favor of the revised schedule, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, sorry.
There's unreadiness, sorry. There's unreadiness.
Oh.
Discussion about it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, I have to check my calendar, so I didn't know we were looking at the 7th, which then changes our meeting.
So that means if we do it and push it like after our meeting, will go late that night. So
We just meet later.
we think about just
Oh,
after that.
It depends if we're on do 8 o'clock, then
Well, yeah.
we do.
Right.
So we'll just say, we'll just leave it.
With the week before. Okay, we'll figure it out. Okay.
Any further discussion? All right. So all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Next item is, so the agenda item is called core training, but I really just wanted to have a discussion about basically following up on our last meeting. We talked about doing a board retreat. We talked about core training. So I just wanted to open it up a little bit to see just to get feedback from everyone to see what would be helpful and how we can go about planning that. I can share a couple thoughts that I have, but mostly I just wanted to kind of get a feeling for where people were on that, especially as far as timing. I did talk to Tim Burke in between meetings, and he said that they're pretty flexible on the core training. They could do it on a Saturday, they could do it on a weeknight. It takes about 2 hours. He also said if we were interested, that Mary Fellows, who some of you may have met, she was at the ribbon cutting for North Albany. She has done some facilitating for things that are not core training, just like other general board facilitating workshops. So if that's something we were interested in, he offered that to us. We could also look other places. We've hired outside facilitators in the past. And the other thing I wanted to ask about is like, we could do a Saturday retreat type deal, which is what we did like when I first joined the board in 2019, or we could do a more decentralized thing. We could do like just a couple of smaller things on different days over the next like few months. Thoughts on that?
I also do want to as well, they do offer the core training quarterly as well, just in case there are days that for everyone. Getting on one of those quarterly dates, so if something doesn't work, there's always a second option as well.
Right. So that reminds me that we did the doodle poll for our core training. 1 or 2 people did not respond, but I think the best day was like there was no day where everybody could really go. I think 6 people could go on a couple different days, and so I wanted to ask, like, we could go ahead with that, but kind of the value of it, I feel like, is having us all there to ask questions at the same time and like hear the presentation together.
What are the dates that seem to work for the majority of people?
They would, in the original poll, they would be like next week and the week following.
On a Saturday?
On weeknights.
So my 2 cents, and I am more than willing to be flexible with whatever anybody wants. And especially knowing that we all have lives and things that we're juggling. I sort of like the idea of a Saturday because I feel like there's a touch more flexibility with time on a Saturday. I know, like, when we're here at night, it's getting late, you eat dinner, your family's at home. Like there's a lot of conflicting things that happen on a weeknight. Whereas I feel like if we did a weekend, it could just be a little bit more relaxed and there might not be like time pressure to like hurry through things or not ask questions. But that said, I am happy to do it whenever we all are willing and able to.
So you said we're looking at next week and the week after for November.
We wanted to do core training on a weeknight The doodle poll had dates over the next couple of weeks in November. But there was no day that was like perfect for everybody, which I know will happen. It's hard to get 10 people all agreeing on a day.
Were there any
Just so everyone knows.
Saturdays?
We didn't do Saturdays in the poll, but Tim said he could do Saturdays. Maybe not every Saturday, but he said he'd be happy to find some Saturdays that work for him and us. And I thought it actually sounded good to have Mary Fellows maybe do some work separately too, not separately, but apart from the core training itself. I think she's like a really good neutral kind of person who's like worked with a lot of boards in Albany County and Rensselaer County. And she could just do some like workshop questions, kind of the things we talked about last month.
Would it be worth knowing that like next week is like really soon and the week after that is Thanksgiving and like I don't think any of us are necessarily planning on it, like start looking at December and January and just put a compilation of weeknights and Saturdays and see if we can that way it's like, I know people do plan out far ahead, but I feel like it's a little bit easier if we might start having a sort of pocket of dates. And then if we're like, oh, here's 2 hours here that works for everyone. And the core training is 2 hours, like get that scheduled. I think just getting a bucket of dates might be helpful. That's far enough out that we can get it written down. And
Yeah, I think that would be good too. Yeah, I could talk with Tim about some Saturdays and do that. And would people be interested if I asked for like so core training is 2 hours. If I asked for like another hour where to do like a separate like team building or whatever type exercise.
So are you saying, 9 to 12, 12 to 3, like, that's, Saturdays? Kind of tough when you're from, you look forward to sleeping in. So, so what are we, the hours Saturday? Because I have meetings all week, so I just need to know what's the date. That's why I probably didn't respond to Thanksgiving because I'm going to be on vacation.
Yeah, it's up to us. So I could make a poll with like a ton of options and see if people respond to 9 a.m. or 3 p.m. or like noon. Yeah, better. I could do it that way, or if there's like consensus now that people really don't like 9 a.m.
I don't like 9 a.m.
Yeah, I prefer 10 a.m. honestly. So yeah. Okay.
I think weekends are, sorry.
No, please.
I think weekends, so for me personally, I just have to know in advance. My schedule is really hectic. With different organizations and community service and things like that. So typically I'm doing community service on the weekends or meetings with other organizations. So as long as I know in advance, I can work around it, but it would just have to be, so I know that November is way too soon. And I'm thinking that I would personally prefer to target towards January, because you have holidays, November and December.
Yeah.
And lots of events happening. So if we look towards January, that might work. And I would even prefer an afternoon, personally, I would prefer an afternoon rather than a morning.
Okay. I think that sounds good. So I'll put out a poll that goes a couple months out in time. So hopefully we can get a date locked in with good notice and leeway. And I can talk to Tim about what kind of training he would want to do in that time, or that he recommends that we do in that time. And I can email you guys that information pretty soon. And at that point, then I welcome your feedback. If we don't like what his recommendation is, we can take that back to him and come up with something better. Go ahead, Sarah.
I have a non-scheduling question around these things. I'm assuming that trainings are not free out of the goodness of Tim's heart. How, just informationally, how is this paid for and budgeted and?
They are free.
Yeah,
They
this is a service of the Upper
Yeah.
Hudson Library System. Yeah.
Oh,
It's their job.
Yeah.
oh, okay then.
And just as a note, starting in 2023, all of you are required to do a set number of, is it 2 hours of training? So this would cover.
Yeah.
If we did it in January, this would cover your requirement
Exactly.
for the year.
Yeah.
Well, that's lovely that it's covered.
No, we have hired outside facilitators before, and they do a good job, but this would not cost money, unlike those. So,
Tom and I did it together. When
We did.
when we were newbies on. It's a quick 2 hours.
Oh yeah, it flies. Okay. Any other thoughts? All right, this is helpful. So I'll be in touch with some ideas and some dates really soon. And likewise, I hope you will all be in touch if you have thoughts after the meeting, between meetings, about how we can do that efficiently. All right, thank you guys. So then we will move on to our new business. We have just one item, and it is the Unite Against Book Bans ALA initiative. And I will actually turn it over to Andrea and/or Trustee Dallas to tell us about it.
Sure. This Sarah already has the sticker. All right.
Repping it.
And yeah, I was just thinking, wow, we really moved fast on Arlene's item from earlier.
Yeah.
It is on the agenda. Sarah sent this to me, this initiative, information about the initiative a little bit earlier, and now it's finally made it on the agenda. But this is basically an ALA initiative that unites civic leaders, elected officials, faith groups, nonprofits, all of the groups that are listed in that first paragraph, basically librarians, libraries, library systems, unites everyone in this concept of protecting the right to read and freedom to read. So, Sarah, I don't know if you want to say a little bit about, I mean, do you have a spiel that you would like to offer about this initiative, or?
This is near and dear to my heart. There's a wave of book bans going on throughout the country, and I don't expect it to stop anytime soon. And what we're trying to do, I am part of the American Library Association. This is an initiative, and it's working, as Andrea said, with publishers and the entire community to make people aware of the problems that happen when, and the threats to democracy, when reading and freedom to read is being challenged. So I think this letter, if you just take a look at it, sums it all perfectly. And if you have questions, please ask. I asked Andrea to include this into the agenda because I think it's important that the Albany Public Library show its support for other libraries in the nation that are being challenged and their funding is being challenged. So that was my motivation, but I'd be happy to answer other questions. I'm hoping that the Upper Hudson.
Y'all make me so happy. Because I can say when I go to the meeting tomorrow, look at what we're doing.
The New York Library Association just signed off on it. All of the public library system directors, it's called Palizdo, they signed off to be, they being the organizations have all signed on to be state partners. I think it's important.
I would just like to, sorry, did I cut you off?
No, please cut me.
I just want to read the commitment, because it really is a relatively light lift and really just affords us with a lot of promotion materials, especially when it comes to banned book, Unite Against Banned Books, or excuse me,
No,
banned
book
books.
bans,
Book bans. So partners to the statement agree to uphold the principles of the campaign, provide their name for the campaign website and materials, promote the campaign to their constituencies, share information of importance with the campaign coordinators and their constituencies, and participate in occasional convenings of campaign partners. So really, it kind of just codifies what we have already been doing as a library every year at Banned Books Week time. And I believe Tom's signature would be the authorized signature that would go on this, that I'll return to the Unite Against Book Bans campaign. So we can have a ceremonial signing after the meeting or whatever, or you can do it now. I don't have a pen on me. I just have a pencil. Sure.
You said that there's been, attempts, 729 attempts to ban or restrict books and services in the library. Does it mention or specify anywhere what kind of books, what kind of titles, what kind of services, what?
Yeah, it does. I'm doing this off the top of my head. Most of the books that are being banned include books written by people of color, books that touch upon LGBTQ issues. There are things that might have information about sex education or let me pull up some banned books.
Because I have honestly done too much research on this question, but
they're also upset with programs that are being held, community-based programs being held in the library. It's a handful of people who, and it's not a big group of people. It's not the majority, are being very vocal about what materials should be in libraries, what materials should be in school libraries, and what kind of programs could be in libraries. The top books that were challenged were Genderqueer, Blonde Boy, All Boys Aren't Blue, Out of Darkness, The Hate You Give, To Kill a Mockingbird, The Handmaid's Tale. Let's see.
is this Unite Against Banned Books.org that you're on?
Mhm.
The survey that shows how many people, that survey that you have right there, that was a bipartisan, that was a survey that was done for Democrats and Republicans, I mean, both sides of the aisle. It was a bipartisan, non-biased survey that came up with that. The numbers that you see on there also are the number of books that were reported. There were much more bans in the country that are called in or reported.
So when we're talking about people who are attempting to, get these books banned, are we talking about parents going to PTA meetings? Are we talking about what is the demographic of the people who are really active in certain kind of books or material services?
There are some groups out there that are going out and asking that or demanding that school boards remove books from the library, library boards remove books from the library. They're vocal. If you do a search, one of the groups that is local is called Moms for Liberty. Another book that was highly banned was Mouse by Art Spiegelman. That was a book that was about the Holocaust. It's a graphic novel. It's done with mice and cats. And the reason they wanted it banned, this groups wanted it banned, not because it was talking about the Holocaust, but because there were naked mice. I don't know if that's answering your question. But the part of being on a library board and part of being part of a library is to allow people to choose what materials they want to view and to read, what programs they want to go to. The other thing is that, and I really believe this, and I really believe this, is that every parent has every right to decide what books their individual child wants to read or needs to read, because that's the role of the parent. But another person telling me or other parents what books their children should be allowed to read is not acceptable. That's against democracy.
So. I have quite a bit of questions, but I'll reserve my questions for that.
All right. So we can entertain a motion to reading from board docs, a motion to join the American Library Association's Unite Against Book Bans campaign.
I have a question. So are we able to entertain a motion if she still has questions or?
Sure.
Yeah, so,
That's why people vote.
yeah,
Thanks, I do know that. Thank you.
we put a motion on the floor and then I will say, is there any further discussion?
Yep.
And then we'll vote.
Is there a timeline that needs to be signed? Just in case, like maybe if we revisit it next month, so Jare has time to research things if she needs.
No, there's no time frame.
I mean, I have not researched this, really. Everyone has their own views. It just seems that if you have people protesting, they're in their right to protest. We're in our right to try and, each party has, their own rights to try to get whatever they want to get across, and I don't know enough about either or really to vote on it. I haven't honestly researched it, so that's where I'm at with it. So I don't know, maybe everyone else is familiar with it, but I'm not. And thank you, Sarah, for putting this. I do think you share a lot of information. I do appreciate that, but I just, for myself, just need to do more research.
All right. Well, if anyone would like to make a motion, we can entertain one. And if no one does, we'll move on.
I make a motion. I second the motion. Join, because that's a slippery slope. You start talking and banning books. And then you have to decide what books, who needs to what read what, you know, and you don't like anything Naked Mice or, you know, when you start talking like the classics, Moby Dick, To Kill a Mockingbird, you know, where does it stop? Where does it end?
The
So,
bluest eye.
you know, it's a slippery slope and I mean, we could talk all day about where it's leading to. And, it's like the writing on the wall. I'm a pessimist and a theorist, a conspiracy theorist. So it is not going well because the Handmaid's Tale is coming. Oh, it is not going well. So I need the motion. Whatever.
Unite against.
Yeah, unite against the book.
bans.
But then we have discussion afterwards, so. This is not.
I second.
All right, trustee Pryor makes the motion, trustee Way seconds. Is there any other discussion?
Now, this is in all books, isn't it? So we have, let's say we're talking, because you mentioned about a school, right? So if you have parents concerned about the literature that their children are being taught at school, and they're wanting to protest that and say, hey, I don't want this curriculum taught, I don't want this book in the curriculum because I feel it's introducing ideas to my child that I don't want, or what have you. You have a whole group of parents who are attending the PTA, say, we don't want this, you know, introduced to our children. I don't know whatever it is. Are we talking about, are we saying that we are not in line with a parent being able to protest what books they're, because
No,
that's the other end of it, though.
Right,
When you're
I
saying-
understand, I really understand that, and
Mhm.
maybe I didn't say this properly. The Albany Public Library has a collection development policy and a reconsideration policy.
Yes, yes.
And the people who purchase the materials for the Albany Public Library are experts in these different subject areas, and they use excellent selection of tools in order to purchase the books that are in this library. So what could happen is that somebody comes in and says, I really don't like that the bluest eye is on the shelf. It needs to be removed. And the library staff goes back to the board approved policy, which is the collection development policy. And they said, well, we'll reconsider it. We'll do a committee and do whatever, and decide. It's not up to an individual coming in and saying, I don't like the fact that you have this book on your shelf. It needs to be removed. As I said before, every parent is responsible for their child.
So I don't disagree with that part.
Right.
Okay.
So the next part is that every parent can come in and say, I don't want my child to read The Bluest Eye. And that's that parent's right. And if they go into the school and say to the school, I don't want my child to read The Bluest Eye, the teachers will work with the student and come up with a book that's more suitable for that child to read.
So I get that part. My question, I guess, because it was presented as if this is a blanket campaign to say we're not, we're not gonna honor, I guess, if people have, that's kind of how it's presented, is it's a blanket campaign to say, we're not going to consider any banned books, I guess you could say, or any books that people want banned. When you're getting into the library, is different from curriculum. So those are two different purposes. Those are two different things. So if you're saying that this is a blanket campaign and we're gonna be saying we don't want any books banned, who's making the decision in reference when we're speaking about curriculum? If that's a blanket campaign to cover curriculum, that's a different.
We're not talking about curriculum. We're responsible for the Albany Public Library.
Absolutely. I thought I saw something about school.
But
Maybe, yeah.
what we're saying is that the principles are reading is a foundational skill.
Absolutely.
To the future, learning to exercising our democratic freedoms.
So I don't disagree with that part. What I'm saying is, what does us signing on to this entail a reference to the campaign itself? So I'm just trying to do just some quick reading here so I can vote as well, but that was my question really.
Right, what we're doing is that we're upholding the work that the library staff and the board do in determining what is purchased in the library.
So I get that because we already have a policy, right? So
Correct.
is this,
So
so
we're
it's only limited to library is what, I guess that's the question. Is this campaign and what we're signing on to only limited to the library?
Well, for us, it's just the Albany Public Library.
Yeah, so,
Well, I
so
mean,
the-
you represent the library trustees, I understand about saying is the campaign itself. The Unite Against Banned Books campaign that we're supporting, is that limited to the library or does that cross other boundaries? For example, or what have, is it only limited to library and library acquisitions?
I think,
It's
I, I, I think the answer is it covers public libraries and school libraries, but not school classroom curriculum.
And as a parent, I want my kid to be able to be comfortable to go into the school library and find what books they need to help them navigate whatever things are coming. And it scares me that people want to take away the ability of my kid to find books in the school library.
Yeah,
You may.
so I think the concept of this, I believe what Jerry is trying to,
It covers just libraries.
it covers libraries, but it's essentially, I'm gonna use the Blue Side, because it's the book that's been thrown out multiple times. If you want your child to be able to read the Blue Side as part of their curriculum, that is your choice. But there are individuals in this country right now who are trying to ban specific titles and saying that even as you as a parent agreeing to this as part of the curriculum, I as a parent don't agree to this as part of the curriculum. So I'm going to raise a fuss, I'm going to cause trouble, I am going to bring my friends who are very vocal and loud and potentially more number to now ensure to inflict my beliefs on you now. To say that we're bigger, we're louder, we have more numbers. So now your choice doesn't matter of what you want your child to be because my voice supersedes you.
I just only, so I get the concept. I just wanted clarity because I see a lot of, when I just glanced over, I saw a lot of parents this, parent that. So in reference to, there could be an agenda to where we're signing on to where we think it's isolated or it's specific to, for example, libraries, but then the United Books Band then moves into curriculum or what have you. So that was my only, that was just the clarity that I needed. I see here that it does say libraries. I mean, parents do have the right to advocate for their children. When it comes to a library, a library, that's a bit different, but I just wanted clarity on that point alone.
Thank you.
And this is a specific initiative of the American Library Association, right? Like that, yeah, and I think that's important to clarify too. It's not some like unknown 501c3. It is a specific initiative of the American Library Association.
So yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
I see that.
And can I just put this into the record? This is the principles that are behind it. Reading is a foundational skill critical to future learning and to exercising our democratic freedoms. Books are tools for understanding complex issues. Limiting young people's access to books does not protect them from life's complex and challenging issues. Individuals should be trusted to make their own decisions about what to read. Parents should not be making decisions for other parents' children. And young people deserve to see themselves reflected in a library's books.
So I have another question as well. If there is a library acquisition policy, right? We have a library acquisition policy, have consideration policy as well. What is there's a protocol that has to happen for that to be successful. So it seems that, I mean, of course, we want to diatribe the personal cheese, but it's, I don't want to say over. But we have a reference to how we're acquiring these, materials. How can possibly one parent or alter, what we're having in our life.
What I think signing on to this particular initiative is saying that we do have our policies, we do have our protocol, and we're sticking by it. And that somebody can't come in here and say, just start removing books and saying, these need to go. It's not happening here
So there have been instances where people have,
on Long Island.
despite the library's policies.
Mhm.
So who made the decision?
They're pushing out in Voorheesville, weren't they?
Who made the decision despite the policy?
Some people who want to control what other people read.
Sometimes it's the library board itself that acts to remove a book, and that's what's wrong with with what's happening these days.
With other libraries.
I get that. It's just,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because when you start talking about curriculum again.
Yeah, that's different, a whole different. But
and that-
yeah,
that's-
I just want to make sure we're not into,
Yeah.
something that's.
Trying to change the curriculum, like not
That's-
trying to teach certain things in schools. So, yeah, everything is a slippery slope, so.
But like one of the examples is there's a library in, I believe, in the Midwest someplace, I forget exactly which state, that a vocal enough group of people got out and decided to not fund the library. And theirs wasn't like ours, where we just, if our vote doesn't pass, we just go back to next year's or last year's budget. Theirs was, if their budget doesn't pass, they get no money whatsoever. And it ended up closing the library because they got enough people to show up for a vote. They vote against voting for the library because they didn't like a book.
It was like an LGBTQ book, wasn't it?
And that's happening across the country at multiple libraries where like libraries are shutting their, for lack of a better term, they're doing witch hunts against librarians specifically that have had to quit and had to move locations and uplift their families because of violence.
And library staff are being threatened. Yeah, it's not pretty. But I really thank you for asking these questions. I don't know if we answered them.
Very should reflect the population that they're serving, but, I think it's definitely. Library is a library. Read books. Right.
That's what's gonna happen is just like, the Red Fox record, supposed to listen to Richard Pryor, and so now you're, by the candlelight trying to read the dirty book and trying to find out why I shouldn't read the book. So they're gonna make the child want to read the book. I mean, underground.
They're kind of understood.
If we're lucky, the kids will do that. If we're not lucky, the kids are gonna go down the internet rabbit hole and get crazy things.
Yes.
I will officially say that I would be proud for us to sign on in solidarity with the rest of the libraries.
All right, so there is a motion on the table to join the Unite Against Book Bans initiative. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? The motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you all. So we do have a need tonight for a brief executive session to discuss an update on collective bargaining matters. Would someone like to make a motion to take us into executive session? Trustee Pryor, thank you. Is anyone second?
Second.
Thank you. Trustee West, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We will now enter our session. So Adam and Sean, thank you guys. Have a great night.
There's no expectation for a vote, correct?
No.
Okay, so we can end the live stream?
Yes. Hang on, Melanie. So just for folks watching on the live stream, the board is going to go into executive session for the evening.
And like, now I feel like my toes
It
getting
will-
cold.
The board is going to go into executive session for the evening and the live stream will not resume. So thank you all for joining us.